Hello and welcome to veteransburialinformation.com. You're here because you want to find out about saving money with cremation. Well, hello. My name is Allan Ellis, and I am a pre-need funeral counselor. And you're here today because you want to save money by being cremated. Now, there's a lot of advertising going on right now about cremation, and yet few know what is required before your cremation can take place. So today, what I'm going to show you is what information is required at the time of death, explain why you need a list of relatives handy rather than an address book, how to find out what your personal preferences are. When we're done, you'll have a good idea of what your wants for your cremation are. I'll show you 3 examples of funeral pricing. Now, although these prices vary widely across the nation, this will be an illustration I'll show you. And then I'll show you the advantage of getting your cremation paid for planned in advance. The first thing I want to show you is the memorial guide. Now, the memorial guide has 3 steps to it, and the first is to know what your personal history is. The personal history information is for the certified copy of the death certificate, and the funeral director must have all of this information in it. The next step is to notify people, and these are people that must be notified at once to assist at the time of need. Now, this is very important right here because these are the people that will be able to help your family at the time of your death. Now, I get asked all the time, or told all the time, you know, Allan, my family is going to be responsible for my funeral arrangements, and that's okay, but there's only going to be one person that's going to sign all the paperwork. Families don't sign paperwork. The next step is step 3, which are your personal preferences. And the personal preferences have to do everything with your funeral. Now, either your funeral home, your church preference, the officiant, that's the person that's running the funeral. And if you're going to be cremated, are you going to be buried after cremation? Do you want that? Do you want to have a service prior to cremation at the mortuary chapel or at a church service? And all of this information, when you would go through that, and the reason for that is because the funeral director will go through all that information with your family at the time of death. The 4th step is to get your funeral cost estimates. And this is the advantage of pre-planning, so that you don't have to your family doesn't have to try to get this information at the time of your death. So it's a professional services, transfer from death, place of death, your embalming if you're going to have a service prior to cremation, the facilities, any automotive equipment. These are, and when you do a pre-need, you pay for your cremation prior to death. You can have guaranteed expenses. Then we have cash advance items. These are items the prices change. And the great thing about pre-planning, again, is that you'll have guaranteed services. You'll have guaranteed on merchandise. The cash advances, those change. So you can see there's quite a bit of information that's required at the time of death, but if you pre-plan for it, then things are a lot easier on your family. So let's take a look at some pricing. Now, these are prices that I put together. They're for illustration only, for cremation with traditional funeral before cremation. And prices vary widely across the United States. So I put together Funeral Home 1, Funeral Home 2, and Funeral Home 3. Here's your professional services, and most of the information that would be required. Disposition permit, cremation container, rental casket. Now, Funeral Home 1, you can see the total price for theirs is $2,744. Funeral Home 2 is $4,769. And Funeral Home 3 is $4,665. But let's take a look at what happens over time here. So let's take a look at what happens over time here. So your funeral price is $2,744. Let's say you're 50 years old, you think you're going to live another 20 years, annual inflation rate is 3. In 2036, your $2,744 funeral price is now $4,955. And your next funeral, which was very similar, same set of circumstances, $4,769. If you're 50 years old, your life expectancy is 20. Again, at 3, funeral annual inflation rate 3 is $8,613 and some change. Now here's your simple $4,665 funeral. Same thing, 20 years, annual inflation 3. In 2036, your $4,665 funeral is now $8,425. Well, I'm Allan Ellis, and I can be reached at 602-481-7797. So a couple things. Number one, you want to pre-plan for sure. You want to pre-plan. You want to prepay, because you're going to have guaranteed funeral expenses paid for. And if you want to know more about this, you can call me here, and somewhere on the page there'll be a form there. You fill that form in, and I can contact you, whichever you prefer. When I come over, I'll sit down with you and your spouse. We'll go over the memorial guide, and I will show you exactly how you can pre-plan and prepay for your cremation. I'm Allan Ellis. I look forward to meeting you soon.